It's your boy, DJ Skinny P, also known as Seizurific, the terror of North American servers. You know, the king of slop content creator, your favorite invisible VTuber. I now have a PNG just for this jazz, but what I'm gonna go over is first a glaze, and then followed by some suggestions. So, the glaze is that the devs are cooking in the game Mecha BREAK. Lots of good quality of life changes from Season 0 to Season 1. They added 2 new strikers. They added more content for Mashmak, including Battlefield Chests and Morena, a new challenge difficulty boss, or Yellow Key boss. They added pity rates for Season Crate loot boxes, including adding Covert Ops tickets for every 20 loot boxes, which is really good for people who want Covert Ops. More modular weapons. They added a Halloween event, which is really cool seasonal jazz. They updated some interfaces, including the glider. They fixed a lot of bugs. They allowed spectator mode in custom games. They added glowing paints and stickers and more patterns, which are, revolutionary in my mind. They added a real battle pass for the Matrix contract holders. They also reworked rockets for better or worse. I didn't personally like them, but we'll let them cook. They revamped the menu to be easier to navigate. They added map challenges content, which I'm a little bit upset at the difficulty of, but they nerfed it and allowed more flexibility in a later patch to allow more people to select their strikers so they can have a better challenge on the map. So it's technically content and a positive change. Um, I'm a bit iffy on this and the Rockets thing. But they also added more weekly missions. They also added more ways to earn paints and season crate loot boxes without actually having to play MASH. They also allowed for easier buying of things from the limited time offerings without having to buy the first thing. So instead of having to buy a big ticket item in order to unlock and buy the other things, you could just buy the other things. So they made it a lot easier for you to get what you want in the store, which is a great way and model for any business to do, is to make it easier for people who want to spend money to spend money. Um, so they added that and so much more. So I want to say that the devs are actively cooking to earn their Michelin star, and I welcome that. They are also trying to communicate more monthly with various news posts, social media, and live stream jazz. It's very sporadic and spread out too thin, so hopefully, someone can take the lead and mantle to try to compile all the various sources of resources that they have provided in the news media, including like their tournament updates and other social media jazz. And so I'm saying that the devs are cooking. Season 0 to season 1 changes, there were a lot, and I am very happy with the direction, and they need to keep going. That's what I'm going to say. Um so now that I've done my glazing, I will now present my sort of opinions, my soapbox, what I have identified as a problem, as well as my suggested solutions. The problems range from minor quality of life to meta systems. These are, at the end of the day, suggestions and not indicative of real material or tested data with virtuous analytical rigor. So I'm going to present this with a problem and suggested solution as a format. As a disclaimer, all of my identified perceived problems, air quotes, and suggested solutions are based on my personal experiences in the North American servers playing the game Mecha BREAK. So first and foremost, ranked Verge isn't as rewarding as Mashmock. There is a reward disparity. When the 50 or so loot boxes you can get for placing Legendary Plus at the end of the season can be obtained within a week of casually playing Mashmock, like you can do about covert ops and get 3 to 7 loot boxes per run, being very casual, and 3 runs a week can net you 9 to 21 loot boxes, meaning an entire season of rewards for Verge could be obtained by playing about 3 weeks of 9 games of covert ops Mashmock, very casually. I think that the reward disparity is a problem between Ranked Verge and Mashmock. It's not rewarding as much to play Ranked Verge when everyone's getting the things that they can make Corite off of in Mashmock. My suggested solutions are that they award Corite for top leaderboards. This would, of course, incentivize players to aim high, especially, the sweats who love the game and they have lots of alt accounts. Also, give Matrix credits per wins and losses. My suggestion is 200 for a win or 50 for a loss. The reason why I want Matrix credits for playing Verge and even Ace Arena is because they are a currency that you can have that persists beyond the season. So it's not like you're grinding in one game mode for seasonal reset currency, right? This thereby incentivizes people to spend the currency that they earn, the Matrix credits, in Mashmock for gear and increase Mashmock player engagement. Or they could just buy things from the Matrix supplies and sell them on the marketplace. The reward of random items like paint kits or mod boxes every X amount of wins would also be a further incentive to keep playing ranked Verge. Instead of just focusing on, your merit score and also your stats, having the ability to earn paint kits and or mod boxes and or even seasonal crates by playing and winning Verge non-consecutively, like if I win 3 and then lose 2 and then win 2 more, and that's technically 5 wins, uh, I feel like you should get a reward for that time spent. That way it incentivizes people to win. Something like maybe one loot box or something like that. Something small. Because if you play a normal game of MASH, it's like 25 minutes. But if you play, you know, 4 games of Verge, that's about 25 minutes, right? Give or take, depending on how the teams line up. I still think playing Verge should give you supply boxes. I think 5 non consecutive wins in ranked Verge should give you a box. That's my opinion. And I think 20 games played, ranked or casual, should give you a box, regardless of win or lose. This would incentivize people to play. I like this idea. I'm sure a lot of other people might have different opinions, but this is my personal opinion. Mashmock currently is full of boxes, and this would greatly change and benefit Verge players and Verge enjoyers because not everybody wants to play Mashmock. I mean, I like Mashmock, I like Verge, I also like Ace Arena, but no one plays Ace Arena. I just want everyone who wants to play the game the way that they want to play the game with the game modes that are given to be given a reward that is at least comparable and that there's not a large gap or disparity in those rewards, right? I'm not saying that playing Verge should have you have more loot boxes than Mashmock in general, but I am saying that the gap is too large and it should be reduced. Speaking of Ace Arena in the NA servers are dry. I imagine it's probably the same in the South American and the EU servers. I imagine they're also dry. This is a very wild suggested solution. I think that maybe in order to revive Ace Arena, like a revival of Ace Arena, we can have Ace Arena have a leaderboard rewards as well, which is not that crazy, but also make Ace Arena ranked only on the weekends. Now, hear me out. If we make Ace Arena offer 100 mission tokens per win, per rank, per tier, meaning that if you were bronze and you won, you would net 100 extra mission tokens, or if you were a champion and you won, which is the 10th tier in the rankings, that would net you 1,000 extra mission tokens. Meaning Ace Arena would essentially be the equivalent of a double EXP weekend game mode, thereby incentivizing players to grind that mode for extra mission tokens and populating that mode specifically during peak hours of time, which are the weekends. I don't know how it is in APAC or the Chinese servers. I'm sure it's different, but this is at least from my perspective in North America. Doing the ranked Ace Arena only on the weekends also respects the time of those who love playing Ace Arena and they don't want to just fumble their way into a queue Monday through Friday or try to get a game going by having other people queue at the same time so they can match with the same people because quite frankly it's kind of a currently a dead game mode. At least now, if you do ranked Ace Arena on the weekends, they get guaranteed matches on the weekends, or at least more guaranteed. Not necessarily guaranteed, but like there's a higher chance of it, especially if people want to farm mission tokens. And or they could make Ace Arena reward loot boxes per 3 non-consecutive wins. They can create an avenue to farm loot boxes reasonably for playing the game modes that they want to play, because I honestly personally see the vision of Ace Arena having a very high skill ceiling because you have to be able to learn how to play a lot of strikers and counters in a very tight environment, which is very fun, I think. As it stands, people who solely play Ace and Verge for PvP aren't rewarded nearly comparable as people who play Mashmak, and I find that to be a large issue. It's basically telling people that if you want more tangible rewards and progression, you should only play Mashmak. For PvP and balancing reasons, it makes sense to not have mods, but currently the loot box seasonal weapon skins are not reasonably attainable with just playing Verge or Ace without having high luck in life, which means that you're not getting a lot of boxes by just playing solely Verge or Ace. That's not a good balance in terms of rewards. This is my opinion. Now, moving on to my problems with Mashmock. In terms of Mashmock, I think we need more objectives on the map. There should be more drills, more splitters, and possibly add more points of interest like a stronghold, where there are more units and loot chests populated in a specific area. They could add more missions, more than one mission, thereby giving players the optional side quests and objectives for greater rewards. I suggest maybe 3 missions, but there could be more. Maybe even optional missions acquired in the map from a loot chest or a boss drop, or during engagement of an enemy troop ship or something like that. Especially in covert ops, if you have a lot of missions, then players would get a lot greedier, and they may get got by the storm. Trying to complete all those missions on top of restricted zones, oh man, the greed will shine, let me tell you. Player agency and being able to have a choice is key in engaging gameplay, and for a lot of the higher skilled players in Mashmock that have a lot of hours playing Mashmock, especially covert ops, I think giving them more incentive to risk everything for a greater reward is a lot better of a gameplay loop, because I think it gives them a chance to actually, get got by their greed, which I think is a valuable choice to offer to players, allowing them to have more freedom and freedom to choose, allowing them to essentially blame no one else but themselves. And I know, like, everyone who dies in covert ops by a storm will always try to blame the game, but then, you take a step back and you're like, yeah, yeah, I deserved it. Like, if you're reasonable, right? Also, in terms of Mashmock, I think perhaps maybe buff the minigun and ballistic autocannons to fire faster or something, or rework them, because they're sort of not great compared to other weapons or options. This is, again, my opinion. The devs have the data, so they can rework it better for uh, interesting solutions, because I've seen them within Season 0 and Season 1 do very innovative and interesting solutions, which, works for better or worse. But I'm here to play the game. So, those are my opinions for, Verge, Ace, and Mashmock, and those are my suggestions as well. Now, moving on to general suggestions, mission tokens, currency, the red coins is a bit loaded. It resets and is a seasonal currency, which is fine if they want to do that, but the problem is that it's also the main currency that you earn through all the game modes, and most new players don't know that it resets every season, which means that every new season, players are going to get burned by having all their red coins taken away. And if you're watching this and you're a new player, I need you to understand those red coins aren't going to last or persist after the season. Technically, if you hover over them in the menus, it will say that they reset, and it tells you to promptly use them before the season resets. But it's very hard for a new player to know that. So a lot of players get got by this seasonal reset, leading to negative reviews because they have been rug pulled without any compensation, no conversion to Matrix credits, or any consolation. And here are more screenshots provided here. My suggested solution is rebranding the red coins, the mission tokens, to just put the word seasonal in front of it. Seasonal mission tokens. So people know it's only per season. And at that point, it's definitely their fault for not knowing it's a seasonal, resettable currency when it's literally in the name. This would alleviate having to rework the entire currency system just by adding the word seasonal. Also, further suggestion, possibly they could make Matrix credits, the blue coins, the main currency, or some other solution to the currency system, because the current way it's designed now, it's basically saying that Mashmak is the only thing granting rewards that exist and persist past seasons, which are the Matrix credits. Other than, of course, the minor weapon skins, strikers, and Mashmak related items that you can buy with mission tokens, the red coins, which you can get through any game mode. But like there's there's a disparity in the currency systems itself where Verge players and Ace players will only get red coins, and they only can buy basically maybe some skins and cosmetics from the store, but the only other option is Mashmock related items, which then they can sell for blue coins. And at that point, if you're just doing that to farm blue coins or something to persist between seasons, or even the skins to sell for Corite, maybe you might as well just play Mashmock because it's more rewarding at that point. So this also ties back into the whole reward disparity between Mashmock and Verge. This is again my opinion and from my insight from playing the game. Now, if we move on to Corite, I think Corite is sort of sparse or dry for some specific items in the Matrix marketplace. I would suggest to reduce price minimums and scale back on the maximums. This is a side note, but in Season 0, you could buy the extraction beacons and then sell them for Matrix credits, and that would net you a lot of Matrix credits. And then people were buying mod boxes, purple mod boxes on the market for 20 Corite apiece, then using the Matrix credits that they got from the selling of the extraction beacons to re-roll or recombine them into yellow mods and then sell it on the Matrix marketplace for, like 300, 600, whatever Corite. And people were doing this to game the market. So in Season 1, what they did was they prevented the ability of selling extraction beacons, and they also raised the purple mod boxes and also prevented the ability to sell specific mods. So they nerfed it all around, and I don't think raising the price on the purple mod boxes was the right move, especially since they made these other changes. So I think they need to roll back on at least the purple mod box change. Back to the regular programming, sorry. Or not have maximums and then scale down, like lower the price minimums a lot more. Sure, this would hurt some of the heavy market participants, but you gotta admit it's a bit ridiculous to spend 16,000 Corite on a weapon skin, which is effectively saying $160 for a weapon skin, or the price minimum for weapon skins being 3,600 Corite, which is the equivalent of 36 US dollars. This is much higher than the industry standard for video games in general of like $5 or $10 weapon skins. Prices, I think, in my opinion, should be reasonable at least during the season. If a season 1 item is sold in, let's say, season 5, there's no need to slap a price maximum, right? So if players wanted to sell season 0 items in, say, season 3 or 4 or 5, let them sell it for 50,000 Corite. I'm sure someone out there is going to farm for that Corite or at least spend their money to get that seasonal item. But at least during the season, it at least provides people an incentive or entryway to at least either spend the money or earn the Corite and get the seasonal weapon skin and or drop, while incentivizing players who are farming those items to keep farming because they're actually getting people to buy. My opinion. Another possible solution is to offer Corite for the Matrix Contract Battle Pass. People are spending real money. It makes sense to reward them with something that costs real money. Other games do this. It's pretty industry standard for a lot of battle passes. This is just from my experience. If earning mission tokens is the seasonal experience bar that also acts as a currency, then some of the tier rewards should include Corite for both paid and non-paid passes, thereby rewarding players for playing the game. Because honestly, you want players that have the Matrix contract and players that don't have the Matrix contract to play the game. You want players to play the game. And I think rewarding them with the Battle Pass or the Matrix contract of something of equivalent and or like kind value in Corite is a free win because essentially, Corite is just it's this made up digital currency in-game coin. It's not like a big deal. You could print it like the Federal Reserve, and I'm sure no one would really bat an eye. But I mean, whatever. Anyway, point is, this would thereby give free players a leg up and a way to earn Corite without relying on specifically the market RNG to sell whatever sort of items that they think might sell. And if the market is dry for liquidity and whatever reasons, the RNG is going to be rough and they're going to have to try to find other things. I do want to make a note here that their Halloween special event, where they have cool Halloween loot boxes like the one I just picked up, is really good for getting an influx of Corite circulation going on and liquidity. And a lot of people are gaming that. They're buying keys, selling keys, they're buying loot boxes, selling loot boxes, and a lot more stimulus is happening because there's more content here to be traded. So I think that's a good move. That's just a side note. Speaking of battle passes, lots of games have battle passes that go way beyond the max cap or the equivalent of 100k mission tokens in this game. And to be honest, I got 100k mission tokens earned by the first 2 weeks in the season by playing mainly casual Verge with the Matrix contract. So the current battle pass is just telling me to play for at least 2 weeks with a Matrix contract or 4 weeks without the Matrix contract. And it doesn't reward me as much after that unless I actively buy things with mission tokens every week. So what I'm saying is like it's capped out at 100k. Like here's a screenshot of where I'm currently sitting at with my less than, I would say probably less than 100 hours of this season playtime at 300k mission tokens earned with the Matrix contract. So I've earned 150 and I haven't played a crazy ton amount and I upload most of my games on YouTube, so it's not like I'm hiding anything. Um so yeah, like this doesn't reward me as much after that unless like after reaching the cap unless I actively buy things with mission tokens every week, which is sort of saying that hey, the Matrix contract's good up until a certain point and then after that it's just extra red coins. And that is something I identified to be a problem. My suggestion is to make anything above 100k mission tokens to be a repeatable reward every X amount of mission tokens, maybe 10k mission tokens. Maybe every 100k mission tokens that you earn above that, you get 1,000 Corite or something like that. Something that would incentivize players to keep playing. That way, it keeps them engaged and rewarded for playing. Like you want people to play and be rewarded for playing, thereby creating a feedback loop where players like playing. And this is just my opinion. I'm not here to help gamify how gamer mentality works or how casinos are ran. I'm not putting lavender in the vents. That's not my jazz. I'm just providing suggestions and feedback. Speaking of suggestions and feedback, if we go back to the weapon skins pricing, I think they're a bit too high and they are scarce. I think if the weapon prices minimum were lowered to 1,000 core, it would anchor in a reasonable price that players can choose to work around. $10 for a cosmetic skin, I think, is very reasonable, like a Stego weapon skin. Now, this is assuming, of course, people are selling it for 1,000 core, which is the minimum. Likely chances are people are probably going to fluctuate their prices and sell it for whatever they think it would go for. And hopefully it's not 15,000 Corite, which is $150, but that's not Season Games' fault. That's not Mecha BREAK's fault that players want to sell a cosmetic item and, rug pull the market and scalp it and then resell it like Pokemon cards for a higher price. That is not the game developer's problem if players do that. It might become a problem if players leave because other players do that, at which point the game developers might have to step in, but you don't want the Federal Reserve to crack down and then tell you how to run your stock market, right? So ideally, if you can lower the price minimums to 1,000 core, right, this would allow players to be able to buy skins for $10, which I think is a great idea. I'm not saying they're guaranteed to buy it for $10, but if they had the ability to, and a further suggestion, if they lower the pity rates on loot boxes for weapon skins, currently they are set to 400, and most people get their weapon skin using pity rather than the chances. I mean, some people are super lucky. I'm not. So 200 loot boxes would take the average player a month and a half of casual gaming to get about 45 hours of game time in, give or take. Even if you bought the weekly 5 from the store, in 3 months you'd have an extra 60 loot boxes. And the quests and jazz and prep ops would give you maybe another 80 plus loot boxes. So unless you grind mash a lot, you'd probably have to make up for about maybe 60 more loot boxes on top of already having 45 hours in the game, specifically in mash. Here's a screenshot. Currently, I'm at 40-ish hours in MASH. I have about 292 loot boxes left to open in order to get the pity skin, and I have 208 boxes on hand. I've already opened about 108 boxes from the start of Season 1, getting about 50 of them for free from performance in Season 0, so I still need 74 more boxes, which will take me probably another 10 hours or so of MASH, which is about 22-ish games. It's not a crazy amount. Games are fun, I enjoy it, but it also I have to do it. It's doable, but also kind of a lot of a grind for especially a lot of casual players. Like some casual players just want to play 1 to 4 games a day and call it good, and then they play other games and do other things. It's like people have lives and work and stuff, so it's not like we want to treat it's not like we want gamers to treat this game as a second job. You know what I mean? Like at least that this is my philosophy, in my opinion, perspective. You can correct me however you want in the comments down below, please, by all means. Now, granted, some players can grind all of that in a week with marathon gaming. Like there are players that have sunk, an extra 200 hours into this season already, and I 300 plus, a lot. People play this game a lot. I'm, however, of the mind and philosophy that seasonal weapon skins should be reasonably easy enough to obtain for those who play during the season, thereby rewarding players for the season rewards. Thereby saying, hey, if you play our game during the season and you play, long enough, but not like a grind long enough, that you will be rewarded with seasonal stuff. Like that just makes sense to me. I think that's my philosophy. That's my design vision. I'm not sure how it differs from other people's design vision or whatnot, but that's my opinion. If we combine these suggestions for 1,000 Corite minimum price minimums for a weapon skin and increase the drop rates and or the pity chances, then during the season players would be rewarded for playing the season and have an active incentive and pathway to get the skins that they want, or they might roll and get a skin that they don't want and they can sell it and then buy a skin that they do want. It works out in everyone's favor. And of course, after the season, these limited skins could be inflated in value, going for more than 1,000 Corite, which is the price minimum that I suggest. Probably around the current minimum, 3,600 Corite or more. At that point, if you're buying a season 1 item in season 5 or 7, like if it costs $200 and you want to spend $200, that's on you, right? I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. And at that point, it's not the dev's fault for making the price uh because that's what the players set the price to, if that makes sense. Anyways, having more weapon skins and skins available will help lower the weapons prices to a reasonable level, my opinion. Spending $150 or 15,000 Corite for a weapon skin is much more concerning than just ace skins being priced at $50, which is around 5,000 Corite. This is again my opinion. These suggestions should take place in later seasons and not during Season 1, thereby honoring players who played Season 1 with the current rates. My opinion. One big thing that I noticed about the ace pilots and weapon skins is that there's a lot of time and effort going into these. Like, these are premium items. Other games have non-premium skins for $5 or $10, and I've honestly spent a lot of money, or a fair amount of money, on skins. Like I even bought the Battlecast Cho'Gath skin for like $20 when it first came out on League of Legends, because that was dope. There are basic skins and premium skins in these games, not just League, but in other games. This game, specifically Mecha Break, has a lot of options for paints, but no middle ground between the paint kits and the premium skins. It's a lot more reasonable to have a $50 skin if there's a middle option that took less effort to maybe push out from a developer's or artistic standpoint and could be bought for $5 or $10 and not 36. I think weapon skins could become the middle ground sort of premium item that's not primo premium item, and thereby it sort of says, hey, the $50 price skin is okay, right? Again, I personally am not a fan of the $50 skins for the ace pilots and all that stuff for the price tag, but I'm also not a fan of telling an artist how they should price their art either. That's why when I cheap out on art that I like, I buy the cheaper option, which are prints, instead of buying the original piece. In essence, I think there should be a cheaper print option for original premium aces. This is, of course, my opinion. As a side suggestion, moving on, Perhaps we can introduce another market and allow trading with other players for matrix credits for up to tier 3 weapons and items. I would be buying a bunch of stuff, especially beam autocannons and defense fields, and this would give players an incentive to buy and trade and sell lower tier gear. This is, again, a side suggestion, my opinion. Yeah, anyway. And finally, I would love to have a roadmap with solid dates. This is my suggestion. I understand a lot goes on behind the scenes at the office, but the gamers and players don't really know what's coming or what's next. We have some teasers, but we don't know when the teasers are going to be released or dropped or anything like that jazz. Even the Morena release was anticipated at the start of the season, leaving a lot of players guessing on how to unlock it and wasting time and being frustrated. I was one of said players. I mean, I know a lot of people who tried using yellow keys at the start of season 1 expecting Morena to be released, but maybe it was a translation in the broadcast. Maybe we didn't understand that it wasn't out yet. But we thought it was out, so we tried hunting Morena, and it was like a hunt for Red October or something. We just didn't find it until later in the middle of season 1 that patch came out, and then we like, okay, now it's official, it's released, now we can hunt it. So, a roadmap for development on concrete and actionable items, I think, would be better. This is, of course, my desire and wish and suggestion. It's not necessarily something that I actually expect, but I mean, I would love to be proven wrong. This would also be great if they would also stick to some of these dates, which is arguably the hard part when it comes to project management, especially a large project and an ongoing project like a live service game. And I think advertising where Mecha Break will show up at would be a really good thing that they can do, including things like Gamescom or Tokyo Game Show. It would be cool for players who actively play the game to know if Mecha Break is doing something locally to show face and support. If you want a good fandom, you gotta leak out upcoming events, and that way we're not surprised that you did another esports push 3 days after the event ended. I want to know, like, beforehand, and if it's like, you know, downtown, I can just go to it. That would be cool. I'd spend whatever money to show up, and then I'd buy merch, probably, honestly. Yeah, so honestly, an internal roadmap for the dev team would be fire, assuming you guys are already on it. Having an external one for the gamers to anticipate when things are going to happen is also a smart move to keep players engaged and have them keeping tabs. A lot of people wait for content in their favorite video games. I know I do, but I also want to know when that content's going to get dropped. And right now, it's kind of like iffy. A lot of the player base is relying on YouTubers and other content creators, sadly, like myself, like me, to follow up on the latest news. And even some of the content creators are left in the dark. So it's rough out here to know when and what will happen, especially with the community tournaments and more. I want to root for these teams, but most of the time I don't even know they're playing. Usually I'm hanging around in chat and then someone says that there's a tournament going on right now and I'm just trying to follow it. Please, please make it easier for esports to show up and market it better. That way people who want to follow the whole esports scene can. And yeah, right. This is my wish. Anyways, all of what I've said are mere suggestions and their opinions. I'm allowed to be wrong. And I will be sending this video to the devs, not to farm views like a jerk. I know I could, but that's not the goal. So if you have other suggestions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Consider what the problem is, how your solution would solve it, and what other issues it might cause. All in all, I've seen a lot of games during their first launch, and Mecha Break isn't actually in a bad spot comparatively if we're looking at their features and offerings. There is a working game here, there is a working product. It is free to play, and if you like it, you could play it nonstop if you wanted to. I personally think the devs just need to grease the wheels, add more content as a priority on top of the quality of life changes that they're doing, and keep doing that. As long as they push out 51% good changes every patch and every season, you'll see at least a much different game in the coming seasons. And judging by the quality of life changes from season 0 to season 1, I'd say they're probably, 70, 80% good changes. They're on the right track. It's very questionable the other 20 or 10%, but I have my own opinions for that. For the record, I've seen No Man's Sky, Warframe, and Cyberpunk 2077 in their first year of release. So let me tell you that this game has more potential than all of those games. My opinion. Feel free to disagree. I think Mecha BREAK just needs to cook for a few more years to catch up. No Man's Sky didn't even have multiplayer at launch. Cyberpunk 2077 crashed consistently at launch. Also, that Warframe from 2014 was a completely different game than the powerhouse it is today. I don't know if you played 2014 Warframe, but it is beyond night and day. Like, it is sun and moon, like standing in the sun and moon. Yeah. Okay, so completely different game in my opinion. So as long as the devs keep cooking here, I'll keep riding the hopium train in Mecha BREAK. And I'm not saying Mecha BREAK is going to be better than Warframe, but I am not comparing apples and oranges here. I'm just saying I've seen Warframe at launch. So please, Warframe enjoyers, don't go after my throat. All right. It's Warframe's a good game. All right, chill. Anyways, that's a good message for any devs in any video game that they're working is to keep on cooking. You won't improve if you give up, my opinion, and that's probably arguably a fact. So don't give up. Listen, weigh in the concerns, and shape something to match the vision of the artistic and commercial success that you're shooting for. Money, for better or worse, is a metric for feedback, but so are viewers and engagement and players. So there's a lot of metrics for feedback that aren't readily quantifiable within the data sets and the matrices that you've already set up within the game and scraping the API and all that jazz. What I'm saying is try to get a feel for this vibe. It's an artistic process, of course. Now, all of the above, all of the previous things that I've just mentioned is mainly quality of life suggestions. So I hope the devs are cooking up the content that is fresh and engaging, like that Battlefield mode. I really want to see it, but also I want it to be good when it comes out. Anyways, in about a month, season 2 will come out, and we'll see what the jazz is all about. So, thanks for watching. These are just suggestions. Feel free to disagree. Tell me I'm wrong. Yeah, have a good life. Yeah, like outside of all that jazz, outside of all this, this is just another slop post from me. Another soapbox opinion post. Cheers. Injecting hopium particles.